I'm back. We got another one for you guys. Right now it's about 10:30 here in New York City. You guys can see the piece of paper, which means we're gonna get scholarly with you guys. I could barely say that word correctly. But today's topic is I believe that the Kenyan diaspora and youth need a third space to be able to congregate together and be there for each other. Now, I'm going to get right into the topic for you guys, and I'm going to give you guys the definition of what a third space is. Before I even get into that, I want to preface with saying that this is a this is an issue that already exists just within the American society, within youths and the current generation and crop of people coming up, that we are missing third spaces. So it's not just a Kenyan thing, but I thought about it from the perspective of we have a community out here and we want to keep that community strong. So this applies to us as well within our community building, bonding, etc. So we're going to get right into the topic. What is a third space? A third space or third space is generally referred to locations or situations that are neither home, a first space, nor work or school, which would be second spaces, where people can connect with others and build community. So let's break that down. You have first space, second space, and third space. My claim is that the Kenyan diaspora and youth need third spaces to be able to connect with each other. I currently don't think that those exist for us in a healthy manner. So I'm going to break that down for you guys. So we already established that a first space is your home. Those are the direct people from your family, your direct community. The first and foremost, your mom, your dad, your sister, whoever you live with, direct people. That's your first space. Second spaces are work and school, places that you have to attend. You probably have a role that you must fill, so you're obligated to act in a certain manner and you're obligated to be there. And a third space is neither one of those two, where people can connect with others. These usually fall into different categories. You could have a physical third space, which is like a cafe, a park, or a library. When you think about those places, there's no set rules within those places. Obviously, there's social rules, things like you got to carry yourself properly, but there's no agenda to those spaces. When you go to the park, you're not expected to, what's it called, congregate at a certain side of the park at a certain time and etc. When you go to the library, you're expected to obviously be quiet, but this is a space where there's no agenda. You go there and you mingle with people and you make organic connections. Now, these spaces are vital for social interactions and well being. This plays into your mental health, etc. Because it's places where you could breathe. You can't necessarily breathe at work or school because you're expected to show up as a student or as a insert your career. When you have a role to play, there's expectations and guidelines of how you can interact with people. In the third space, you're there at your own will. Everyone else is as well. So interactions are more organic. And these spaces should be informal generally. And I kind of broke that down explaining that there's no agenda, there's no expected decorum and schedule when you're in these spaces. Now, let's look at what the current Kenyan youths within the diaspora have. Generally, we have the first spaces where we have our direct family, our parents or cousins or whoever you live with. Maybe you moved to the U.S. as a bachelor and you have a roommate who's probably Kenyan. That would be your first space interactions and connections. And then we have our second spaces, work and school as well. And our current third space generally is church for the majority of large communities here in the U.S. And that made me go and ask ChatGPT because I am a Gen Z. ChatGPT is like our lifeline in a sense. So I asked ChatGPT slash Google as well, just to not get any fluff or any anything that ChatGPT may add that I may not need. I asked ChatGPT, can church be a third space? Right? Because I didn't want to go into this thinking that we don't have one at all. So I said yes and no, depending, right? In the case where a church operates as a third space, it's usually hosting community events, meals, support groups, and these are usually geared towards the public. A church can also be operating as a third space if it provides non-religious services, childcare, job training, food pantries, and things of that nature. Things geared towards the either the direct community within the church, or even the outside community that is not necessarily religious, but geared towards just helping people. And then the third way that it can be operating as a third space is if it encourages social interactions among people, amongst people who might not otherwise connect. So people who probably would not go to the church being able to interact with other people who would not be in the church. If a church creates such a environment, right, then it's operating as a third space. The ways that a church doesn't operate as a third space is if it's only used for formal worship or members only religious activities, and if it only enforces or if it enforces strong hierarchical or exclusive boundaries. My handwriting is horrible. The third way that it fails to operate as a third space is it doesn't foster casual or diverse social interaction. So let's break those down. The first one being that it's only used for formal worship or members only religious activities. I would say that a lot of Kenyan churches try to, foster different activities. For example, growing up within my Kenyan church, we would do things like Valentine's events that you could invite people who may not necessarily go to church, but the guidelines of the event would still be church rails. There'll be guardrails within place, right? But generally, you're not going to host a an event that would desecrate the church within the church. So, in a sense, a lot of the events that a church would host within the U.S., like Kenyan churches, would be generally religious and have a sermon or have some type of worship session within them. And then if it enforces strong hierarchical or exclusive boundaries, so if you're hosting an event where we have to pay respect to some elders and this, that, and the other, or there's a pastor who holds the highest regard within the room, that that's not creating a third space type of environment. Because remember, when you're at a park, nobody's the head, nobody's on top, nobody's in charge, or what's it called, more catered to more than the others. And then the third way doesn't foster a casual or diverse social interaction. In my opinion, if I'm going to an event and what's it called? If I'm going to an event and we have to have a 45-minute or even 30-minute, Bible reading, or what's it called, praise and worship session. I'm familiar with the church. To me, that may not be a problem, but that's not a casual environment for somebody to, be themselves and open up and connect. So the reason I bring up this whole topic of Kenyan youths need a third space is because hearing what's going on within the community here, um, young people taking their own lives and we don't have their presence with us anymore. It's sad to hear. And when I really think about it in the sense of like the immediate Kenyans within their area would be the first support group. Maybe if they don't have somebody at home to support them, but just people, the Kenyans in the general area should be there for each other. But when I hear these things going on, I start thinking about realistically, like if I wasn't doing an event within the church, it's like it was still people I knew from within the church that I made those connections with. At the end of the day, church would still transpire within a lot of those events. At the same time, you also have big communities out there who will throw gatherings at the park, etc. And sometimes these gatherings are like clicked up in the sense of this big group of people who know each other from this area or this side of town, and they may not necessarily be inviting to any random Kenyan in the area. Yes, you can show up, nobody's gonna kick you out, but at the same time, we break down into these very small and narrow groups, which is natural. But I believe that there should be a third space, especially for the Kenyan youths coming up, where they can go to and not feel pressured that somebody's going to judge them or try to speak at them. That's one big thing. Oh my gosh, that is disgusting. That is disgusting. There's these, what's it called? This is New York for you guys. There's these large roaches that fly and they have wings, and I don't understand how these things exist. I'm gonna try to flick them off the roof, but okay, I flicked one, and I flicked the second one. Back to the topic. That is disgusting. Oh my gosh. Okay, I forgot where I was at. We need third spaces where a youth or a young Kenyan individual who may not necessarily be tied in with a community from the church can easily plug into and connect with people. The way I would envision such a thing is like within each state, probably once every 2 months or every 3 months, people gather just on the basis of we're Kenyan. That's it. Not we gather because we all go to this church. Not we gather because we're all of this tribe. Not we gather because we all know each other from some place back in the day or whatever. But I gotta make sure that there's no other flying roaches. But let's wait for these ambulance to pass. So yeah, there needs to be a space where young Kenyan youths can gather with no pressures of having to be formal, having to be, a certain way, no pressures. A place where they can go and actually, what's it called, ask for advice from other Kenyans within the area or connect and, build bonds and ask for advice. They're trying to get into a career. They're trying to work at a local hospital and there's already 5 Kenyans who work there, right? There needs to be a third space where people can connect with each other with no pressures and no ties to any other outside things. And the reason I say that this needs to exist is because I feel like right now we are currently fragmented in the sense of we only gather based on cliques or what's it called? Other affiliations that are small and narrowed down regionally. But if there was a space where the youths that are coming up, the ones who are even still in high school, because those are probably the most vulnerable right now. If there was a space for them to be able to freely go and discuss with each other maybe what they're going through, that would be the best. Now, I've seen some different people who've made efforts in this area. Like I follow Snap254 on Instagram, and they just recently posted a post with this other lady. Her Instagram page is JROLOGIST. Her name is Robina, and I believe she is a psychologist or psychiatrist. One of those two. Don't quote me. So this video, I would say, is more so geared towards maybe people within that age group, people within my age group, or people who may have kids within that age group, like the 18 to 25 to 30-ish, because there's a lot of people struggling within that age group right now. And like I said in the beginning, this is an issue that exists outside of the Kenyan community. It's not unique to us as Kenyans that people within this age group feel that there's no spaces for them to freely meet and mingle with each other with no agenda. I think that's the biggest problem. A lot of the Let me go back to this. This lady Robina, she's hosting a an event online. You should go check out her page. Again, her Instagram is JROLOGIST. I believe she's a psychologist or psychiatrist. Her name is Robina. And I believe she's hosting a seminar online for healing and African guided healing, because she also understands that there's a lot of young youths going through a lot right now. So I thought that this video would be appropriate for the time that we're in within the Kenyan community, because recently there's been, I think, at least 5 tragic situations where young people are no longer with us for reasons that we may not know, but most likely mental and not having a community around them. So, me being 26, having seen different waves of what's it called, of within the Kenyan community here, where it was strong, there was always an event, people were always tied into each other, and now seeing it for what it is, where a lot of people are secluded, a lot of people are on their own. Like I posted a video on my channel saying I've lost touch with the Kenyan community. This was like a week or two ago. And in that video, I kind of break down how this ends up happening, where people move to states where there's not a community, or there's not a lot of them, or people, what's it called, just don't feel they can mingle with the local communities because maybe they're very faith based and all that other stuff. So I made some videos on this, and I feel like this video ties into that. Also, one of my recent videos was, should the church be the center of the Kenyan diasporan communities? And the reason I also made that video is the same topic of, there's only a few spaces where Kenyans and the young people have the freedom to gather. If they could just meet on the basis of just being Kenyan, that would be beautiful. Do I have the answers of how that would happen? No, that would probably be the next video. But I wanted to bring up this topic, that there are currently no third spaces for the young Kenyan youth. It is a dire need because, as I said, third spaces often, what's it called, are vital for social interactions and well-being. Just being able to show up at a park where there's 400 other Kenyans just because you all live in the same state, that can be what somebody's missing. Maybe they get a hug. Maybe somebody just asked them, "Hey, how you doing? Hey, I've never seen you before. How long you lived here?" That could be what somebody's missing, right? But the way it's currently set up, it's cliques, it's families, it's this, that, and we gotta figure it out. That's the end of this video. I tried to keep it on topic as much as I can, but kind of give you guys a feel for how I see it for what it is. Um, This is not a video to, what's it called, bash the church or anything. Because, like I said, the strongest communities that you'll find are around the church. But at the same time, even within that church, there's a lot of issues and people who don't feel comfortable voicing certain situations or voicing where they're at. And I believe that if there were third spaces with no pressures, no obligations, no hierarchies, where everyone is equal, you show up as a Kenyan because you're Kenyan, I believe that that could change a lot for the community. That is the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Um, I will probably make a follow-up video on this, explaining how that could look and why that would be important. I don't know. I'm just talking right now. That is the end of this video. I love you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.